He ran the country with no instructions. This is the animated history story of George Washington. Imagine clocking in for your first day on the job, only to find the office is literally on fire, the national treasury is empty, and your co-workers are actively trying to stab each other. Then someone hands you a freshly ratified but untested constitution and says, "Good luck." That was the situation on April 30th, 1789, for a man whose name tag read, George Washington, President. As for an employee handbook, it was still at the printer, mainly because nobody had actually invented the job of president yet, leaving Washington to define the office as he went. Washington didn't run for office. He actively tried to hide out at Mount Vernon to avoid it, writing that he was leaving for New York with a mind oppressed with more anxious and painful sensations than I have words to express. It didn't matter, though, because every single elector still scribbled their name on their ballot, making him the only unanimously elected president in history. When the messenger finally tracked him down, Washington was genuinely distressed. You can just picture it. It's like winning the Powerball and then realizing the jackpot is a bankrupt nation with millions in war debt. The country was so broke, he had to borrow cash just to get to New York for the swearing-in. He arrived in a plain brown suit to show his modesty, stood on the balcony of Federal Hall, and looked so nervous that observers thought he'd rather be facing cannon fire. His job description was essentially to keep 13 bickering states from murdering each other, all while France and Britain were sniffing around for weaknesses. No pressure, right? Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury, storms into the first cabinet meeting looking like a guy with a brilliant, high-risk economic vision. He pitches a modern financial system including a national bank, federal assumption of all state war debts, and a stable national currency. Meanwhile, Thomas Jefferson, the Secretary of State, shows up looking like a man who believes the nation's soul lies in its agrarian roots. He argues Hamilton's plan is unconstitutional, favors wealthy northern speculators, and is a plot to consolidate power in the central government. All the while, Washington just sits between them, nodding like a tired dad watching his kids argue over the future of the country. The compromise, famously known as the dinner table bargain, was brokered by Jefferson himself. In exchange for Southern support for Hamilton's debt plan, Hamilton secured Northern votes to locate the nation's new capital on the Potomac River. Congress seemed to pass it just to make the screaming stop, and shockingly, it established the nation's credit and got the economy moving, though everyone involved still wanted to throttle each other. To pay for Hamilton's shiny new financial system, Congress passed the first ever federal excise tax on a domestic product: whiskey. For farmers in western Pennsylvania, distilling grain into whiskey wasn't a luxury. It was how they transported their crops to market. They responded with all the mature restraint of toddlers who've been denied dessert. They tarred and feathered tax collectors and started burning down the homes of officials. Washington, seeing the rebellion as a direct threat to the new government's authority, did something unprecedented. He personally led a militia of nearly 13,000 men, an army larger than the one he'd commanded for much of the Revolution, to crush the uprising. After the dust settled, Washington pardoned the few ringleaders who were convicted, mostly to prove that the government could be both powerful and merciful. His actions established a crucial precedent. If you hate a federal law, you can complain, you can vote, or you can start a podcast, but you can't start an armed insurrection. At least, not yet. If you're enjoying this guided tour of presidential panic attacks, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and let the algorithm know that George sent you. After all, Washington himself probably could have used a bigger cheering section. Washington didn't wake up one morning planning to invent the two-term limit. He was just simply bone-tired. After 8 years of babysitting Hamilton and Jefferson, enduring constant public scrutiny, and pretending to adore 3-hour state dinners, he'd finally had enough. When he announced he was stepping down, European monarchs, who ruled for life, were stunned in unison. Voluntarily surrendering power was like spotting a unicorn tipping the bartender. His farewell address reads like a dad's final lecture before handing over the car keys. In it, he famously warned his kids to avoid the dangers of divisive political parties and to steer clear of permanent foreign entanglements, setting a cornerstone of American foreign policy for the next century. Finally free, Washington galloped home to Mount Vernon in 1797, expecting a little peace and quiet. Instead, he found the mansion was in disrepair, his farms were struggling, and tourists were already camping out on his lawn, hosting nearly 700 guests in a single year. He spent his last years playing the part of a gentleman farmer and innovator, building one of the largest and most modern whiskey distilleries in the country. He died just 2 years after leaving office, probably from sheer exhaustion. In his will, he did something monumental for a Virginian planter of his stature. He ordered all the enslaved people he personally owned, 123 individuals, to be freed upon his wife Martha's death. It was a final, powerful statement from the man who was first in war, first in peace, and first to have to figure it all out. No instructions, no precedent. But somehow, it worked. Washington managed to hold a cracked nation together with sheer grit, a strong sense of duty, and a political savvy that was sharper than his sword. Every peaceful transfer of power since has followed the trail he blazed, mostly because nobody wanted to relive the chaos of figuring it all out for the first time. So, the next time your printer jams on page 1, just remember the guy who had to build a country before anyone had even agreed on what a country was supposed to be. And remember, if you like these little moments in history, please like and subscribe. Thank you.